Welcome to Keeping It Real podcast. I'm Sweet Tea, and I talk with people weekly, monthly about technology, what supports you, what holds you back. We talk with it all. We dive deep into the intersection of technology and the human experience. In today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Christopher Williams, who is a longtime Toastmaster coming in today. That's why we're producing this episode for a Toastmasters workshop. Our discussion today will center around the topic of what supports and does not support us in technology, as we live in a world where technology is increasingly intertwined with our daily lives. It's important to understand how it affects us and what we can do to navigate it better. Together, we'll explore Chris's personal experiences and insights, as well as practical tips and strategies that can help us make the most of our relationship with technology. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the fascinating world of technology and the human psyche. Start out real quick. I want to just dive into a definition of the word technology. Technology refers to the tools, techniques, and systems that are used to create, develop, and improve products and services. It encompasses everything from physical devices and software to processes and methodologies. Technology is an ever changing field and is constantly changing and advancing and has become an integral part of our daily lives. Its impact can be seen in every aspect of our society, from communication and entertainment to business and healthcare. But before I go on and get into our conversation with Chris about technology, I want to give a shout out to an organization that's been helping me over the last decade, Toastmasters. Toastmasters International is a nonprofit organization that helps individuals improve their public speaking, communication, and leadership skills with over 16,000 clubs in 143 countries. Toastmasters is the perfect place to develop your skills and become a more effective communicator and leader. Join a Toastmasters club today and start your journey to success. And with that, I'd love to introduce to the show technology enthusiast, Toastmaster member Christopher Williams. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you.
Just start out like what first of all, a few questions. What get to know for the fans experience? What got you so much into technology?
Well, it's basically out of necessity. I had one of the first uh, laptops that came out from the Sinclair company, small thing, and I had to back away from it because it was programmed in COBOL. That was way above my pay grade. Anyhow, I've tried to keep my hand into technology. I introduced computers or PCs would use the old floppies in an office where I was a judge, and it really worked very well. We could just staple the floppies, well, not staple, but at least attach the floppies to the files. That way, you could have stuff written on the floppies, and it saved the clerk so much time and effort trying to get things together. So I've tried to stay pace with it as it came through the door. However, the door has gotten pretty crowded. And in fact, I'll be 81 this coming May, and I will tell you right now, there is a flood of technology out there. The best way I know of to deal with technology is like the federal government. Get your mind fixed on what you want, throw money at it, stay up late, and get her done.
Get her done. I love it. And just get, I have a few questions here to advance our conversation and all, but we're gonna get into the best piece of technology and the essentially the worst piece of technology. But start out, how has technology changed the way we communicate or you communicate with each other, and what impact has this had on relationships?
Well, we have, of course, Zoom, which stands out in the forefront. We have various programs for podcasting and so on. It is just a wonderment of opportunities out there. I understand that Google has an array of podcasts they list they can provide to you. And there's just so much technology out there. It's almost like trying to dip your toe in a very turbulent and full lake. Everything
Mm,
is moving. The water is flowing
yeah.
everywhere. So we grab bits and pieces. I got involved in hybrid when COVID struck, trying to get things set up so that those who wanted to meet in person could interface with those who were coming in virtually. And again, I use the old principle, throw money at it, work late, try to piece things together, use your own equipment, and lo and behold, I was able to come up with a system for Allen Toastmasters, and it is still working flawlessly today. So we were able to circulate that bit of technology to others. And at its height, I think we had 27 hybrid clubs within District 50, which I attribute to Dwayne because he was such a fellow who would guide you to a solution and say, make it happen. So
Mm.
Dwayne Wannick.
And you mentioned District 50, D50, Toastmasters. For those who may not know, in the Dallas area, not DFW, but Dallas and parts of East Texas and Shreveport, Louisiana.
Mhm.
That's when he mentions D50. That's where that's coming from. But I want to just get out and ask this question right away. You mentioned
Sure.
a little bit isolating. Do you think technology is making us more connected or isolated?
I think it's making us more connected, but at the same time, in getting more connected, you get specialized. So you go to certain places over others. So you're isolating in a sense too. You're not
Right.
swimming in the full stream. You're just swimming on maybe the side or maybe the middle or maybe the other side.
The old adage, don't too much of anything is never good, right? Too much of ice cream is never good. Too much technology, but a little bit can support your life in big ways, big drastic ways.
Indeed.
But when
I
you
got
start
into, I'm
being
sorry.
dependent on it is when becomes a problem, an
Yeah,
issue.
indeed. That system that I set up at the office became one that was very popular with the clerks, very popular with the other judges in the office, and we were able to get decisions out to the public
Mm,
fast. However,
yeah.
there were some people a little further up the ladder than I am, a pay grade or two, and they were not too happy with that.
Hmm.
Ready for this? About a year later, they adopted the system. I wonder why.
One more question before I get into the meat of our conversation. What ethical concerns you mentioned started to, and this is great segue into this. What ethical concerns do you have about the way technology is currently being used, and how do you think these can be addressed?
So many permissions are asked. Can we send you notifications? Lord knows they just rain down from the heavens on us.
Allow this camera, allow this everywhere. You have to allow permissions everywhere you go. Yeah.
And that just overswamps my email boxes and so on. So
Oh yeah.
uh, that and there are privacy concerns. Where is this information going? Are you being targeted
Indeed.
by a particular advertiser that will swamp you over time? We've
Mm.
had those, they'll latch onto you Every week there's something in your inbox. After a while, you just label them spam and away they go. We hope.
All right, so now let's get into it. Why we came here to this episode. What it's what is the best piece of technology that you have used in your life that supports you the best?
I guess the traditional PC. I mean, I remember the Radio Shack model at a very nice price, I might add. I got into them as soon as I could. I tried to expand my appreciation of the various ins and outs. I use a little bit of high tech now, like my headset, but otherwise, I feel like I've kind of been there and done that. And to get further involved, well, it's time consuming. You have to maintain equipment. You have to keep up with the various technologies that your equipment can access. So it's almost like, being thrown into a forest and they give you a machete and they say, go forth. We'll look to see you on the other side of the mountain. Well, there are some of us who do that. And there are some like you, who I consider preeminent in your field, who basically deal with technology so frequently that you become conversant in many different fields of technology: sound, picture, wavelengths, the whole bit.
Yeah, it becomes almost a way of life almost,
Hmm.
but you can easily just find yourself just getting immersed in it and find yourself depending on it, like going back to depending on it maybe too much.
Ah,
But
yes.
knowing when to step back, I do. I haven't done one in a while, but like a detox where I just do a detox day and I leave my phone home and I just go out, and it's rewarding in itself when you can just step away, leave your phone behind,
Not
and
going to happen.
so the second question of the piece: what is the technology? And you mentioned it before we started recording. Maybe it's that, but what is the technology that you wish either never existed or care never to see or use again?
Well, I will say I'm very enamored with the PCs and all of the iterations of PCs. I mean, we have the PC uh, connections to various pieces of equipment. And I just don't want to become overly dependent. I mean, when you have the option of dictating a letter, an email, or whatever, versus tapping it out on the keyboard, what's going to be your choice? And then what will you do if you're unable to dictate and you have to go back to those little keys? I marvel at the people who can take their thumbs and operate all manner of equipment. How do they
Hmm.
do it? I've got fingers that are just great big and fat, and there's no way I can do great things with a keyboard. Uh, in any event, I would say the PC is probably the most major piece of technology I've ever gotten near. And I mean, I go all the way back to the very beginnings of the tech era. Certainly not back to ARPANET, which is the original setup for PCs and the internet in this country, but still, um, I've seen a lot of it, and it is, how can I say, something that just draws you in and becomes so much a part of your life that you wonder how you could ever have done without it. But I've been in the era where we didn't have it.
Hmm.
And hey, we were able to do things. Now, the big thing is information
Hmm.
coming to you, coming from you, and circulating all around. That
Yeah, and
makes me nervous.
I'm kind of in that same boat. I consider one of the earliest millennials where I've seen the both worlds before and then after when it's happened, and so I can kind of see that because I went to school without phones. Essentially, we had this simple flip phone in the later part of my school career. So I can totally see non-technology world, and then after maybe about 2005 2006. So I'm that millennial that saw both.
I go back to the crank-up phones, yes, indeed, and the party lines. The push-button phone was the big thing in my day. We were actually going through stuff in the house, and lo and behold, I found an old Princess phone. It is a collector's item.
Hmm.
What can I say? It still works, but even so,
So moving one last question, then I get to some bonus questions, and we'll wrap this up. And
right?
we can move you back into the Zoom after this. But one last question here: how do you think we talked about the past? How do you think technology is going to change the world in the next 10 years? And what are you most excited or worried about?
Well, the question is, where do we draw the line at technology? Body parts become damaged,
Mm.
age, fall apart. It is a strong possibility that they will be coming up for parts to replace human parts. Additionally, there is the possibility, and it's almost in the realm of science fiction, to sort of download memories of a person and perhaps move them into a clone. Is this a
And isn't that
possibility?
already being done? Like with the whole Facebook out, I hear
Well,
some things
yeah,
being done, kind of.
we're kind of working up on this stuff. And a clone loaded with your memories, what does that clone become? You? It's a
Mm.
it's a series of fine lines that are slowly being crossed.
It's you, but it's not you.
Hmm. It's a copy.
It's how you think. It's how you act, react, behaviors, but physical, maybe not.
Hmm.
Maybe in sometime in the future too.
We've come a long way from the supposed robots and clanking about in some of the late 50s movies and so on, and now they become exceptionally sophisticated, and
Hmm.
uh, they're drawing the lines now very closely. You can look at the scenes transpiring. You can see the technology being involved. I have seen several pictures of late that do involve uh, robots built to look like humans and having human mindsets that can function.
Hmm.
In fact, better than humans. And that's where the wrinkle comes in.
And I'd like to continue more of this conversation, but maybe for another day when we can have a little good dive a little deeper into this. This has been great so far. But one final question, bonus question here. I like to add at least one bonus question for my first podcast experience and inspiration. Lewis Howes, The School of Greatness, as you saw before. That's my first podcast I ever listened to, and it's my inspiration for this podcast. By the way, just got to throw that shout out in there. What is your definition of innovation?
Mm. Innovation is stepping forward from a particular mindset and going to a more advanced one. So, for example, instead of simple arithmetic, you go into algebra. From algebra, you go into higher mathematics. Then from there, you go into even more advanced and perhaps theoretical mathematics. Still mathematics, but you can see the gradations occurring over time. I mean, we get pi computed to an almost infinite number of numbers. We have so many other things that can be done now with technology. It's almost limitless, and it's a little scary because of that.
Again, it was great. That's Chris Williams on innovation. It was great conversation. I hope to have back on again to go dive deeper. I'll let you go and exit the studio here and come back into the Zoom so we can continue our workshop. And thanks again. This was fun.
Okay, thank you so much. Good talking to you.